Picture this. You're operating right in the middle of a highly volatile conflict zone. The absolute only thing standing between your staff's safety and total operational collapse is a single line of defense, a security wall. Oh, and you've got exactly 3 weeks to build it from scratch on a razor-thin budget. No pressure, right? Well, that is exactly the extreme, high-stakes scenario we're unpacking in today's explainer. We're going to dive into a real-world case study of humanitarian procurement over in South Sudan, and you'll see firsthand how brilliant strategic sourcing can literally save lives and budgets all at the same time. Let's get into it.
Here's the game plan for today. First, the high-stakes humanitarian mission. Second, the security wall problem. Third, analyzing the 3 bids. Fourth, managing contractual risks. And finally, the results and key takeaways.
Alright, kicking things off with Part 1, High-Stakes Humanitarian Mission, Building Under Pressure in Warrap State.
Okay, let's really dive into this context. We are traveling back to March 2016 in South Sudan. The Action Against Hunger Team, or ACF, was operating in what you could definitely call an incredibly fragile environment. I mean, think about it. You've got remote logistics making it a total nightmare just to move materials around. You're dealing with a severely limited supplier market. It's not exactly like you can just pop down to the local mega hardware store to grab what you need, right? Add to that some intense security requirements and the absolute critical need for operational continuity. Because if this team has to halt their work because their compound isn't secure, vulnerable people simply don't get the help they desperately need. So this isn't just about pouring some concrete, it's about keeping a vital lifeline completely open.
Moving right along to Part 2, the security wall problem, a critical need for asset and staff protection.
So here is the exact scope of the project. They needed the rapid construction of a 50 by 15 meter brick security wall, topped off with razor wire, plus they had to rehabilitate about 70 to 78 meters of existing fencing infrastructure. But the absolutely most crucial element here, the number 21. They had exactly 21 days, 3 weeks. That was the aggressive, ticking clock timeline they were up against to complete the work, secure their staff, and make sure their programs didn't face any disruption whatsoever.
Which brings us to Part 3, Analyzing the 3 bids, Choosing the right contractor.
Now you might be wondering, with a 21-day timeline, how on earth do you select a contractor without totally compromising on cost, speed, or quality? And this brilliantly illustrates the dilemma the procurement team faced. You've got 3 bids for the exact same scope of work. Patrici Auto Function comes in at a massive $43,904. Otabanic Construction is significantly lower, sitting at $19,058. And Imato International comes in at $16,777. It's a really fascinating puzzle. If you're the procurement lead, who do you choose? Do you just blindly pick the cheapest one? But wait, what if they can't deliver in 21 days? On the flip side, what if the absolute most expensive bid is the only one with a reliable supply chain? To kind of ground this data in the reality of the field office, we actually have an insider look at the real procurement dossier from ACF South Sudan. You can see the exact line items here, the blocks, the bamboo mats, the razor wire, and how those 3 completely different total prices were actually calculated across the suppliers. You know, it's one thing to just hear the numbers, but seeing the actual spreadsheet used in a conflict zone, it really highlights the gravity of the decision they were making.
So the ACF team deployed a highly data-driven evaluation model to make their choice. They didn't just look at the bottom line and call it a day. But Patrici was instantly flagged as being way, way above budget. That left a super tight race between Otabane and Imato. Now, while Otabane was competitive at just over $19,000, the evaluation framework revealed they actually had a weaker track record. Imato International, on the other hand, offered not just the lowest price, but hands down the best overall value because of their proven capability. They literally had the operational reliability to match that super competitive cost.
Let's actually look directly at the source text for that final decision. Right here in the official sign-off, the assessment conclusion states exactly why Imato was chosen. Look at point 2. It notes they quoted within the budget limit and were found to be realistic and genuine in their pricing. But point 3, that's the clincher. It says their past record shows a good work experience as compared to the other 2 contractors. So you see, it wasn't just about the money, it was about the rock-solid guarantee of meeting that brutal 21-day time limit with actual good quality work.
Let's shift to Part 4, Managing Contractual Risks, the secret sauce of sourcing.
Okay, so choosing the right bidder is really only half the battle. Picking the cheapest bid is easy enough, but holding them to a 21-day timeline in a highly volatile environment, well, that requires some ironclad contract structuring. So the crucial point here is how exactly you balance incentives with accountability. The procurement leads structured this incredibly smart commercial model. First, you have the carrot, right? Performance-based payments. Imato wasn't going to get a huge lump sum up front and potentially just walk away. Instead, they got 50% at mid-completion and the other 50% at final completion. Then we have the stick, severe delay penalties. For every single week Imato was late past that 21-day mark, they face a strict 2% penalty. This is brilliant because it directly shifts the risk of delay onto the contractor, really motivating them to hit those milestones.
But the risk management didn't just stop at payments. To guarantee that this need for speed didn't sacrifice execution certainty or safety, they embedded some incredibly strict operational controls right into the contract. They used unit rate pricing tied directly to actual work delivered, which beautifully balanced cost control with scope variability. They held explicit termination rights just in case things went totally south. They mandated daily progress reporting and strict quality inspections, so literally no surprises on day 20. And they forced contractor accountability for workforce management and safety. These controls basically built a protective fence around the project itself.
Finally, Part 5. Results and key takeaways. What we can learn from this case.
All right, we've seen the problem, we've seen the analysis, and the contractual structure. Now, what's really interesting here is the final measurable impact these strategic decisions actually had on the organization's budget and operations. The sheer scale of the financial victory here is honestly incredible. By avoiding the highest compliant bidder, Patrici, and running a highly disciplined sourcing process with Imato, the ACF team achieved a massive 61% cost avoidance. That is a huge chunk of a humanitarian budget that is now totally freed up to be spent directly on aid, rather than administrative infrastructure, and it's all simply because the procurement process was handled strategically.
The final contract value locked in was exactly $16,777. And remember, even when you compare that to the next most viable competitor, Otabane, this still represented a solid 12% savings. That right there proves that the disciplined evaluation didn't just avoid the worst option, it successfully optimized for the absolute best one.
But you know, the ultimate success wasn't just financial. It was completely operational. The wall was built, the fencing was rehabilitated, the absolutely critical security infrastructure was successfully delivered within that aggressive 21-day timeline. By holding the line on cost, speed, and execution, the team secured their compound, protected their staff, and most importantly, ensured that their vital humanitarian programs could just continue without any interruption. They literally beat the ticking clock.
This entire case study is basically a masterclass in how strategic sourcing is about so much more than just buying things. It is really about complex problem solving under extreme pressure. We saw exactly how a structured evaluation model paired with brilliant contractual risk mitigation turned a highly fragile situation into a total operational victory. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. When you are managing your next high-stakes project with a ticking clock and a super tight budget, what operational controls and evaluation frameworks will you actually put in place? How will you balance cost, speed, and execution certainty? Think about it. Until next time, keep analyzing, keep optimizing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.